What's up, YouTube? My name's Tom Levini, and this is my legacy assignment. So, kind of just hopping right into it. Who am I? A little brief bio. About me, I grew up in Santa Rosa, California. It is a medium sized town, I would say. There's a population of 100,000. Uh, and we are in Sonoma County, this little county here, to the west of Napa and about 45 minutes north of San Francisco. What I did there in high school, um, I basically just did swim. That was the thing I was really passionate about, and the thing that I was okay at. I was also involved in like a few academic clubs, a few philanthropic clubs, Key Club, etc. Um, and then from there, as everyone who is watching this video, I assume, apart from maybe my parents or something, I went to SDSU. SDSU, two things that I got really involved in. This club called CPF, or this associated student body called CPF, and then volunteer work. Um, those are kind of the big things that I've done a lot of while I've been at college. Um, so next, kind of just a little bit more about me, some cultural identities, and kind of things that I care about socially. Um, I'm 22. I'm American. My religion is I'm a Jew. I'm Jewish. Male, SDSU student, English speaker. I like to consider myself a traveler. Politically, I think the easiest way to identify me is I'm a social libertarian. I'm middle class, and then from my dad's side of the family, I'm Italian. Definitely very Italian. My grandparents are straight from Italy. So that's kind of some broad cultural identifiers. Um, but kind of where my social consciousness comes from, and then kind of three big events that have happened to me while I'm at SDSU that have affected my social consciousness and things that I care about. Was my junior year. I had the privilege of actually going to a talk by Rose Schindler, and who's Rose? She's a Holocaust survivor who lives in San Diego, and she hosted this very powerful speech at the student union, my third year here, where she just kind of talked about her experience surviving the Holocaust and the concentration camps, and then coming to California and living in San Diego, issues that the Jewish population face here and outside of California. And it just made me kind of re-identify with that part of my life and who I am, and then also made me kind of care about the problems that are facing Jews here. So, I think being my Jewish identity was something that I felt really strongly when I was younger. Um, I had my bar mitzvah in middle school, and then throughout high school, I was involved in like this social group that's called Havarim, which basically just means friends in Hebrew. It wasn't too serious, but it was something that I was always involved in. And then when I went to college, I kind of lost this part of my identity and my social conscious, and it wasn't something I really made any effort to be a part of until after listening to Rose speak. Um, it made me just kind of take this part of who I am more seriously and want to get involved in problems facing the Jewish population here in San Diego. Next, kind of the second thing I discovered is kind of a social issue from traveling abroad. Um, I traveled a lot. I think with my parents, with my dad, we traveled a lot inside the U.S., going to different states and visiting kind of different communities within the U.S. And then with my mom, we did a lot of kind of South America trips, Mexico trips. But when I went abroad, that was the first time I visited like a different first world country. So that was like the first time I went to Europe, and I studied abroad in Spain. And the big thing that I noticed there was just the way that they treat people and the way they treat homeless people was so different. And it actually kind of made me almost like ashamed of how we treat homeless people here in the US and how we don't really seem to be doing that much to help them, or we don't have the correct programs in place to help them. So since coming back from being abroad, I've started volunteering at Father Joe's Village a lot. and trying to help out in that community as much as I can. And then the third thing is just kind of being a student. You're surrounded by all the social issues that are just affecting young people today. You go onto campus and you see a protest, and you say, "Oh, what's going on here?" So like a big one is the student debt problem, or something else that's talked about on this campus, I guess you could say, is like women's health issues. So abortion, the pill, whatever, etc. So those are also things that I'm aware of, and they're part of my social consciousness just from being a student here the past 4 years. Next, we kind of just get into some or two of the kind of big contributions and things that I've done while being at SDSU, and kind of how they tie in to some of the Weber's Honors College core values. One of the big things I was involved in, and I talked about, or I just mentioned before, was CPF. What's CPF? It stands for Campus Program Funding. And really what we do there is student-run organizations, clubs. They come to us asking for money so that way they can put on an event. Maybe they can host a speaker to come. And what we do with them there is we make sure that they're following all the rules, all the regulations, they have a plan, and then we write them a check. And this was something I got into early, my freshman year, and I ended up being able to become a chair on this board. So where that relates to kind of some of the core values, I think is just excellence and accountability, because we're not necessarily talking about a small amount of money here. Some people came and asking for a couple $1,000s. And you just have to be accountable. I mean, this is money that all the students have paid. It's a rather large fund, a few $100,000, and you just have to make sure they had a plan, all the rules were being followed, the paperwork was filled out correctly. It was kind of a big job. Next was just private tutoring. This is something I also started when I was abroad. I started teaching English when I was there, just as a way to have a little extra spending money. Not tutoring English to people who didn't speak any, because my Spanish isn't great, but for people who wanted to take standardized English tests to prove they have competency in the field, competency in English. I would teach them and help them prepare for the exam. And it was something that I ended up kind of liking, and something I continued when I got back here at SDSU, but not tutoring English, tutoring finance. It was fun. It definitely takes some persistence, though. It can be hard to figure out like the right way to teach somebody or help them understand, but you can't give up. You got to just keep on working and trying to help them get it. So what did I learn from these two things? I think really I just learned responsibility, and helped me kind of identify some areas that I could work on, and some things that I think I'm pretty good at, such as numbers, obviously finance student. So I think that kind of gets us to the halfway point, or more or less. Looking at the prompts, I noticed it was kind of split into two topics, who are you, what have you done, and then some type of issue that you care about, and maybe how your opinion on it has changed since joining the SDSU community. So the topic I want to talk about is climate change and food security. So really, I think before SDSU and before becoming a member of the Honors College, I had a pretty pessimistic view on climate change. I looked around and I just was like, damn, like we're not doing anything to help fix this problem. But then when I took Honors 313, Global Food Security, I slowly started to realize that, that's not necessarily true. And really, while we didn't directly talk about climate change, we talked about kind of the idea of cap to the human population, and the idea that humans are going to eradicate themselves and we're not going to be able to support ourselves. And specifically, we kind of broke it down into these two schools of thought, and those are the Malthusian school of thought and the Cornucopian school of thought. So the Malthusian school of thought, it was created by this guy called Thomas Malthus in the 18th century, and he said basically there is a cap to the human population. on the planet. He says it's going to be around 1 billion people. At that point, we're not going to be able to support any more people. We're going to run out of ways to produce food for them. Famine's going to happen, disease, natural disasters. We're stopping at 1 billion. Cornucopian was essentially, listen, people are smart. We're going to figure out ways to continue to thrive and survive. Technology will continue to improve. We'll be able to support a lot more people. Malthus was obviously proven incorrect. I mean, we're at like 7 billion now, I think. So that I kind of took the idea of believing in human ingenuity and intelligence and innovation, and it made me think about climate change. And I thought, well, we've only thought about climate change for about 30 years. From that point, well, we've thought about it for a little bit longer, but it's only been a front of mind issue for people, let's say 20 or 30 years. And in that time, we've seen a huge growth in renewable energy, electricity, solar, water, hydro, wind. They've all grown so much, and I just started to think, human beings, we're smart, and we have a really strong survival instinct, and we're not going to let ourselves be wiped out. Our technology will continue to improve, and it just made me have a lot more positive outlook on climate change, and just believing that, as a race, we're smart enough to survive, and our technology will continue to improve. And it's an issue that actually is being dealt with, and actually kind of quickly when you think of the scale of just 20 years. And I guess that is pretty much the end of my presentation. Who am I? Grew up in Northern California, swim, finance major, a few cultural identities, and then a topic that I care about. Thank you.